It is almost 10 o'clock, and we're on to our final interview for the morning. A very, very serious interview and very serious claims as well. We understand that there is this very insidious role of the CIA in the ANC and South African politics. Let's talk to Tshepo Kgadima, Independent Economic, Energy and Political Analyst. Very good morning to you, Tshepo. Welcome to the program. Should we be worried?
It's really great to hear and great to the listeners of Salam Media. Yes, we should be worried, but we should be worried more about the state of mind of our politicians, not about the publicly stated role and purpose of the CIA. It should not come as any surprise at all that the CIA would have interest in South Africa, but specifically also in what is known as the ruling party, because one of the stated purposes of the CIA's existence is to collate information and ensure that the U.S. State Department, in the pursuance of its sovereignty and security objectives, that it should ensure that any conduct which might undermine its own security interest, national security interest, that such action must be looked at. And by the way, the CIA has been in existence since 1947, post-World War II. So that tells you that actually World War II or World War I were nothing but just battles. They were not the actual war. The war is actually imperialism. And imperialism is the enemy and has been the enemy at all times. Now, in pursuance of the imperialist agenda, it should not be surprising that the intelligence agencies such as the CIA would then exist, because they can therefore be able to do things that even undermine international law.
Okay, we understand that what you're discussing with us this morning is not a conspiracy theory. It's not thumb sucking. That there is confirmation that this is a pattern of history as far as the CIA is concerned. They use this modus operandi in third world countries to destabilize and replace governments. They use it. When there's coups in a country, they are the people who have actually set the machinery, in operation to have the coup take place and have their preferred government run the country to protect, as you say, to protect their interest in that region, geopolitically, obviously. But I'm also hearing claims that the ANC has been penetrated by the CIA.
No, that has been even before democracy. The CIA has always had interest in the ANC. Even when South Africa became a republic in 1961, the ANC was already in existence, the CIA was in existence, and the CIA had material interest in not only the Nationalist Party government that ushered in a new republic in 1961, but had a material interest in the leaders of the liberation movements, and specifically the African National Congress. So it is nothing new. And when one looks back in history, as I say, it is not surprising. However, what should be concerning is that the so-called leaders of the ANC and of all other political parties, by the way, the CIA's interest extends not just to the ANC, but to every single political party formation in this country. The question becomes that to what extent are the leaders of political parties aware of this interest by intelligence agencies, specifically the CIA? Because when you take into account that South Africa's role multilaterally, whether at the UN agencies, in other agencies such as the G20, where we've just come from, or even within BRICS, all of those, in one form or another, they have got a direct bearing on the U.S. foreign policy and national security interests. Therefore, our own politicians should be a lot more aware. But I think as the citizenry, we have not demanded of our politicians to what extent are they actually attuned to the threat of entryism, which means the infiltration at the highest levels. And the fact that they are infiltrated, as is the case, it should not surprise us. But at the same time, it's not something that the CIA does in secret. They have done so because, as I mentioned, that they've done that in Europe, they've done that in Eastern Europe, they've done that in the former Soviet republics, and it therefore could not have at any point in time come to an end. But all of that is because there is a war going on, and that war is imperialism, whereby certain countries want to indeed be the ruler of the world. And for as long as that remains the objective of nations such as the United States, we should expect that every single country, including within the African Union and the 54 member states of the African Union, each and every one of them, their foreign policy, by and large, and even their domestic policy, whether it's on the economy, whether it's on the politics and otherwise, in one form or another, has got a direct bearing on U.S. interests. I also want to highlight the fact that, the CIA publishes a book called the World Fact Book. And that World Fact Book deals largely with geo-economic matters and geostrategic matters, not just geopolitical matters. In fact, and that is the intent for that CIA World Fact Book. And we should ourselves have been aware, and we should expect that they will continue. So if the ANC is voted out of power, which it appears more likely to happen in 2024, the threat will not go away. In fact, whoever that comes in the coalition government, as it appears there will be a coalition government, such leaders of the political parties who will form a coalition government will indeed be in the line of sight of the CIA, and the CIA will have to do so because, after all, that is its primary purpose for existence, to ensure that the U.S. foreign policy is given effect to by gathering intelligence and to say what exactly can affect the national security interests of the United States. We just have not stated what is our national security interest and how are we actually going to apply our foreign policy to be able to advance the national security interest of South Africa. So the State Security Agency of South Africa, by and large, has not been able to play a role that ordinarily would have been expected of it. And I think that is the drawback, and that is effectively going to be the downfall of our republic.
So, Tshepo, these are really very serious allegations. Have you seen evidence substantiating these claims? And also, what does this mean to the ANC going into the elective conference?
No, I think the interest is there, but it's going to be a wait and see game in my assessment. That whoever that emerges, because we have to bear this in mind that the president is under siege, and it will not be surprising that the CIA is very much aware of the allegations in a docket that Arthur Fraser put against the president, but that the CIA itself is very much aware. So by and large, their interest will be that, as much as it might look like it's a foregone conclusion that Cyril Ramaphosa will return, but in the much higher likelihood that he does not return, who actually is going to take over? And that person that takes over, what is their attitude? What is their philosophy in terms of towards the United States and towards other countries, particularly China, Russia, and within the BRICS context? That is going to be of key interest, because any alignment in one form or another is going to indicate whether or not South Africa would emerge as a new threat to the U.S. National security interests. And those national security interests, as I say, they are, to ensure world dominance, for the United States to continue in its position as a world leader. And to do so, they have to, there is a war going on. And as I say, imperialism is not a new war. It's a war that has been, more than 100 years old. And the World Wars One, Two, they were just really battles, military battles. But the war has now evolved into that of geo-economic nature. So whereby the countries that can be able to sustainably grow and seek to, because from economic strength, you have got sovereignty. So and sovereignty by and large means that you determine your own agenda as a nation. The problem is that with South Africa, we have not yet come to a uniform agreement and conclusion of what is the agenda for South Africa economically, in terms of foreign policy, so economically, geostrategically, and geopolitically. And because from that haphazard foreign policy formulation, we find ourselves whereby we are being torn left, right, and center. Perhaps maybe for the CIA and even the MI6, which is Britain, their benefit might be the fact that we don't see the same level of activity on intelligence front that countries such as China and Russia are engaged in. Because if that were to be the case, this would be the proverbial grass that suffers when two elephants are fighting. And just because the other elephant is not on this turf, so the grass, being the country South Africa, is not yet suffering to that extent. But should it happen that the other countries also want to assert themselves or want to protect their own national security interests, which might not necessarily be in tandem with the national security interest of the United States. In fact, these are foes, well-known foes. We will find a situation whereby this country, I think, will, the sovereignty is actually in question now, but the country will really suffer, will not be able to assert its position as an equal among the League of Nations.
Sounds worse than a spy thriller, be that as it may. Obviously, there is infiltration in the ANC. I'm kind of wondering to what extent are the ANC candidates in the clutches, in the clutches of the CIA? What is the CIA's modus operandi? And they can't have infiltrated without collusion from ANC members or certain ANC members.
Now, most of the ANC members, and you can see that as to remember the attitude of ANC leaders in terms of willingness to cooperate with foreign foes is expressed in terms of what the government does. The ANC has got this thing to say: the ANC is the center of power. So, from that ideology of the ANC being the center of power, obviously, intelligence organizations such as the CIA would very much have interest in the ANC, because they are very much aware that whatever that the ANC does, and if the leaders' philosophy, their ideology and attitude is anything to go by, will be expressed in government. And therefore, if you can be able to have influence, and even to a degree of capturing the mind and the capacity of decision making within ANC leadership in terms of its NEC, most certainly then you know that in government is a foregone conclusion. So that's really why the ANC is so important, because of that, say, we are the center of power. So right now, this report, which the government is fighting tooth and nail to have concealed, because that report points out as to who within the African National Congress leadership actually has proposed, has agreed to become party, to become subservient, to become subject to what the U.S. foreign policy is all about. And that, if it is revealed, those leaders are, the question then becomes, how will other countries, particularly China and Russia, how will they view their interactions with South African government, taking into account that the policy of the South African government is very much homegrown, originating within the African National Congress. So the revelations, they are far more serious. So it is not surprising that there's this fight to try and keep the names of those persons who have been working with the enemy, if I could put it in those terms, concealed, because once you reveal who they are, their identity is revealed, the ramifications, they are far much more wider. So this matter is not only South Africans who we have interest in, but every single intelligence agency anywhere in this planet is very much interested in the names of these ANC leaders who are working with the CIA for very obvious reasons. South Africa is got the second highest number of foreign missions and various other organizations, foreign organizations that are here, second to the United States, second to Washington. So when you look at that, it means that the geostrategic nature of South Africa obviously necessitates that every single country has got material interest on what South Africa does. And I can't help but think and conclude that there must be a great deal of consternation within other countries. As I say, in this case, when geopolitically you look within Russia and China, you can't help but believe that there is consternation with this revelation. And also at the same time, I would not be surprised that the Russian and Chinese intelligence agencies already have got the report, which the journalist from the independent online group has already have in their possession.
Tshepo,
so they already have got access to those reports.
Okay, I've run out of time. This discussion needs an hour or more, and undoubtedly Inayat Wadi will probably pick up on this conversation on Wednesday evening. There's lots to unpack, including the issue you mentioned, the magic word, their state capture. We need to also ask, how serious is this as compared to the Guptas and state capture, that state capture report. So lots to unpack, and Inayat Wadi will unpack it with you. I just need to share something with you. We've just got breaking news that the SCA has dismissed Zuma's medical parole appeal. The SCA has ruled the decision to grant Zuma parole was unlawful and invalid. A short answer to that, please, Tshepo.
Well, that should not have surprised us, and should not surprise us to the extent that the fight once again is leading up to the ANC conference. And for as long as the CR17 documents remain sealed by the court, the judiciary of South Africa is itself on trial, because it has been demonstrated over a lengthy of time that the judiciary of South Africa is no longer loyal to the law, but makes rulings that are on a special cases. So jurisprudence has been undermined. So it is not surprising that they have dismissed it, but it cannot be. Once we read the actual judgment itself, the ratio decidendi, what led them to come to that conclusion, you will find that it's not really on solid legal grounds, whereby there could even be international case law for comparative purposes, which will be cited, because this is one of those things. But I don't think that at the same time that the judiciary is very much alert that they are breeding seeds of anarchy by not applying the law as written, by at all material times not having justice that is blind, but looking at who is appearing before them. But for as long as the CR17 back statements are sealed, where there's a serious allegation that 43 judges are already have been beneficiaries of the funds that were collected for the CR17, sure. That is a very serious allegation, but there can be none other than the Chief Justice, Raymond Zondo, who must redeem this nation from that very invidious, from that very untenable situation, because for as long as those remain in the field as they are, therefore there will always be a question mark. So this undermines the judiciary of the country, integrity. It undermines that, are they truly a night watchman that must protect us? That are they truly the princes of the empire, and with the courts being the law's empire?
Okay, Tshepo Kgadima, Independent Economic, Energy and Political Analyst. Thank you indeed for those deep insights into the situation of just how far down the line we've been captured by the judiciary, by the Guptas, and now by the CIA. Undoubtedly, as I've said, Inayat Wadi will unpack further on the Wednesday night show. It is exactly 20 after 10 o'clock. Next up, inshallah, Juice 26 by Sheikh Mahir Al-Muaykli. And from me till tomorrow morning at the same time as always, Assalamu alaikum and Khuda Hafiz.